So good morning. We're going over chapter 4, section 2, which is standard form of a quadratic function. So the standard form is known as f of x is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c, where a does not equal 0. A can be any number except 0. If not, it's no longer a quadratic function. It will be a linear function. So guys, what do we know about quadratic functions? The graph of a quadratic function is known as a parabola. What does a parabola look like? A parabola, you have your xy coordinate. You guys that we've been looking over for a few days, looks like this, right? So if A is positive, the parabola opens upwards. So if A is positive, so greater than 0, the parabola is going to open like this. If A is less than 0, so that means A is negative, the parabola opens downward, which means it opens like this. This is known as a reflection over the x-axis. Now, as we know, we went over it yesterday, we have something called the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry is that line where the parabola breaks right into the middle, into a half of a parabola, and you can kind of fold it together to get a sandwich or a mirror image of each other. So, as we also saw yesterday as a reminder, the x-coordinate of the vertex is the axis of symmetry, and the coordinate of the vertex, or the y value of the function, is the y value after you plug in the x. So, it's known as the negative b over 2a, and then the y value of the negative b over 2a. Also known, the vertex would be your x and y values. You find your x by using the equation negative b over 2a, and you find your y by plugging in whatever that number is into the equation. You also have the x and the y intercepts. Remember, the y-intercept is 0, a number, and the x-intercept is a number. I'm going to put c, 0. Now, we don't know what the c is. C is just stands for constant right now. But it is a number. They want us to graph this equation. So the first thing I'm going to look is it in standard form? Yes, it's in standard form. Y equals x squared plus 2x plus 3. If you want to write it in function notation, is f of x is equal to x squared plus 2x plus 3. That is just the function notation form. So in order for us to graph this parabola, we need to know a few things. We need to know, well, first what the vertex is. So let's find the vertex. We're going to start finding the vertex, the x value, also known as the axis of symmetry, using the equation negative b over 2a. Now, just so we are aware, our a is 1, our b is 2, and our c is 3. So we're going to go ahead and plug it in. Negative b, so negative 2 over 2 times 1 gives us negative 2 over 2, which gives us 1. So we have the vertex, we have the x value. The x value is 1, we got to figure out what the y value is. For now, we only have the x. How do we find the y value? So we plug that 1 into the equation. So we get y is equal to 1 squared plus 2 times 1 plus 3. So this is going to become 1 plus 2 plus 3. This is 3 plus 3. So they give us that the y value for this vertex is 1, 6. So let's go ahead and graph it. So I'm going to plug in the point 1, 6. Now, I need to find 2 points. Since our vertex is at 1, I will do an xy chart. And I'm going to choose the numbers that are next to the this point. So I'm going to choose 0, which is 1 to the left. And I'm going to choose 2, which is 1 to the right. So when I choose 0, I will get y is equal to 0 squared plus 2 times 0 plus 3. Those numbers cancel out, and we get the value of 3, which is 0, 3 for this equation. Guys, I just noticed I made a little bit of a mistake right here. This negative, I forgot to keep it for the -1. So actually the vertex is -1. We don't know if it's 6. Actually, I need to do that again. So when I do that and I plug in the -1, I end up with 1 minus 2 plus 3. That's going to definitely give us a different number. So it's going to be -1 plus 3, which gives us +2. So the vertex is not at 1, 6. It's at -1, 2. I noticed that because I saw that the parabola opens upward because it's positive, and it wasn't matching. So we have the point right here. So instead of choosing 0 and 2, we're going to choose 0 and -2. Again, the ones from next to each other. So we get 0, 3. Then I'm going to plug in 2. So I'm going to get y is equal to -2 squared plus 2 times -2 plus 3. That's going to be +4 minus 4 plus 3. So that's 0 plus 3. So we end up with -2, 3. So we get to the points right there. Now, we go up, and we have officially sketched this parabola. Now, how did I catch my mistake? Let's go over it so you guys understand. I had the point right here. When I found out that it was 0, 3, this graph would have been looking down, right? It would have been a downwards parabola. And that is wrong. Why? Because our A is positive. And we just went over the fact that if A is positive, it has an upwards looking parabola. So, having noticed that, I noticed that I made a mistake. When I got the vertex, I plugged in the wrong number. So I double checked my work and realized, okay, I made a mistake when solving this. It should have been -1. And when I fixed it, I got the correct looking parabola. So if you know it's upward and you do a mistake like that and you notice it's going down, that means you made a mistake somewhere. So it is good to always know which way the parabola is looking before you start. That way, if you make a mistake, you're able to catch it faster. So to find and graph this problem, the first thing you want to find is the vertex. So to find the vertex, you need to find the x and the y. So what is our x for the vertex? It's the same thing as the axis of symmetry, which is the -b over 2a. So your a is -2, your b is 2, and your c is -5. So it's going to be -2 over 2 times -2. So -2 over -4. That becomes a +1/2. So that is the x value for our vertex. Alright, so to find the y of our vertex, we're going to plug in that half into the equation. So we're going to get y is equal to -2 times a half squared plus 2 times a half minus 5. Now remember, when you're squaring a fraction, you're squaring the top number and the bottom number. So you're going to end up with -2. And then times 1 over 4 plus 2 over 2 minus 5. Now, -2 is the same thing as -2 over 1. So this is going to become -2 over 4. This is going to become 1 and then minus 5. I can combine this to get -1/2 minus 4. Now, since I need to be able to add these two fractions, or in this case, add the two negatives, this will become 8 over 2. And then the y value would be -9 over 2. So we have -9 over 2. Now, keep in mind, this is a negative parabola, so it's going to look downwards. Let's see if we did our math correctly so we can try it out. So I'm just making a graph. Close enough. Now, -1/2 and then +1/2 and -9 over 2. It's going to be around here. Not perfect, but close enough to the placement. Now, we have the XY chart. So I'm going to test out the number 0. And then I'm going to test out the number 1. When I plug in 0, I get negative 2 times 0 squared plus 2 times 0 minus 5. These numbers cancel out, so we're left with 0, comma, negative 5. So we get this point right here. Because so far it's looking good. It's down from, that's a down parabola, which is what we're looking for. Now let's plug in number 1. We get negative 2 times 1 squared plus 2 times 1 minus 5. That is going to be negative 2 times 1 plus 2 minus 5. That is negative 2 plus 2 minus 5. That is 0 minus 5, which gives us negative 5. So we get the point 1, comma, negative 5. So again, it's going to look down that way. And it's looking like a downwards parabola. So that means we did our math correctly with the vertex and the other points. So example 5 is identify the vertex and axis of symmetry and the maximum or minimum value of the parabola. Now, for the vertex, as you guys know, that is where the graph falls on top of each other. So it's going to be right here. So our vertex is going to be 0, negative 4. Remember, the axis of symmetry is exactly the x value of the vertex, so it's going to be x is equal to 0. And then how do we figure out a maximum or a minimum value? The maximum or minimum value, you're going to figure it out based on how the parabola looks. If you have an upward looking parabola, it's the point at the bottom, so where the vertex is, that's going to be known as the minimum, because that is the lowest the graph can go. If you have a downwards looking parabola, that top point is going to be known as the maximum, because that is as high as the graph can go. So when you have maximum or minimum, you have to tell me which one it is. This one is a positive looking parabola, so it's going to be known as the minimum value, and that is going to be the y value of the vertex. So just to recap, the minimum or maximum value is the y value of your vertex. Depending on if the equation is positive or negative, you're going to get the minimum or the maximum. If it's a positive equation, you're going to have a minimum. If it's a negative equation, you're going to have a maximum. And then the axis of symmetry is the x value of your vertex. So they want us to identify the vertex, the axis of symmetry, the maximum, minimum value, and the range of each parabola. So they're adding one more step. So let's find the vertex. The vertex comes from the equation negative b over 2a, which is also the axis of symmetry. Now, there is no b, so because there's no b, you can just go ahead and write 0. So 0 over 2 times 2, you're going to get 0 over negative 4, which remember, everything that is 0 on the top means it's equal to 0. So that means our axis of symmetry, it's going to be x is equal to 0. We have our vertex, we have 0, comma, a number. Now let's find the y value of that number. So y is equal 2 times 0 squared plus 5. That's going to be 2 times 0 plus 5. The 2 and the 0 are going to cancel out to get 5. So we have 0, comma, 5 for the vertex. We found the axis of symmetry. Now let's identify if it's a minimum or a maximum. We have an upward looking parabola, so that means we're going to have a minimum. And our minimum is going to be at 5. They also want us to find the range. Now, how do we know the range? If you have an upward looking parabola, you're going to have a number and then up to infinity. And if you have a downward looking parabola, you're going to start at negative infinity up to that number. Those are the only two options you have for range. Now, this one is an up looking parabola. So for the range, it's going to be from the number, which is 5, comma, infinity. Now remember, range is dealt with the y value. So our range is based on the y value of the vertex. So we have our vertex, we have our axis of symmetry, we have the minimum value, and we have the range. We have found all 4 things they have requested us to find. So example 7 is identify the vertex, the axis of symmetry, the maximum or minimum value, and the range of each parabola. So let's start with the vertex. And I'm going to start with the vertex using the equation negative b over 2a. So negative 0 over 2 times negative 1. So negative 0 over negative 2. That is 0 over 2, which is just 0. So our vertex starts at 0, and we got to figure out the y. Now our axis of symmetry, it's going to be x is equal to 0. Now let's find the y value of this vertex. So y is equal to negative 0 squared minus 0. So we get 0 minus 0, which is just 0. So our vertex is 0, 0. We have the axis of symmetry, which is 0. Let me highlight them. So the vertex, the axis of symmetry. Now, it's a downwards looking parabola, so that means we have a maximum value. And the maximum value is going to be 0. That's the y value. So we have the maximum. And then they're asking us for the range. Now, the range, this is a downwards looking parabola. So that is the other option that we had. So it's going to be from negative infinity up to the number of the y vertex, which is 0, included. So we have found the four things they're asking for: the vertex, the axis of symmetry, the maximum value in this case, and the range of the parabola. Since there's no questions, guys, this is it for today's notes.